Hey guys, I'm recording this on election week. This is it. In just a few days, we'll find out who our next president is. It's Kamala versus Donald. Things are getting fairly intense. And as someone who grew up in 6 different countries and seen dictators, military coups, civil war, I even campaigned for president, I want to give you some context, some perspective, and 5 ideas on how to survive election week and stay sane. Here we go. Do you want to build a truly extraordinary life, what we call an exponential life? My weekly newsletter brings you insights, stories, expert conversations, my favorite books and podcasts every Sunday. Subscribers get exclusive access to my monthly group coaching webinars, all for free. And for the cost of a latte a month, you can help support our work and access our full archives. Subscribe at christianrayflores.com. So let's unpack this. For a little context, I was probably 2 years old, 3 years old, when Chile was electing their first socialist president. Actually, he was the first socialist president democratically elected anywhere in the world in history. His name was Salvador Allende. Both of my parents were Marxist, and they campaigned for him. My mom, I think, spoke at a rally. We went to rallies. They tell me that I would chant as a little baby the Allende, solo Allende chant. That was sort of the chant that people had at the time. He got elected. He got overthrown. He died. The rest is history, very tragic history, and we were in the middle of that mess. You fast forward a few years, we were now exiles after the military coup in Chile, and we were in Maputo, Mozambique. And this was also a new country because they had just gotten their independence from the Portuguese. And the first president, his name was Samora Machel. He was very charismatic, also Marxist, wore that sort of Fidel Castro uniform type thing. And I had the chance to actually meet him because we had a little children's choir, and I was already singing at the time, and we sang for him, and we said hi, etc. So I have pictures of that. You fast forward a few years later, we live in Russia. I am a big pop star. I have a number one hit called Our Generation. By that time, I'm intensely anti-communist, okay? Because I've seen enough by then. And Boris Yeltsin, who was the first president of Russia after the Soviet Union fell apart, was running against the communists, and the communists were coming back and they were winning in the polls. And his people connected to my people, and they used my song as the anthem for the election campaign. So they used it in all kinds of promos and ads and things like that. And I was campaigning on TV, touring, etc. And somehow this contributed to him actually winning at the time. So this is sort of the historic backdrop of my life and my experiences with politics. Why do I tell you this? It's because from that experience and that expertise, I want to give you 5 ideas on how to survive election day with sanity, with clarity, and with perspective, okay? I hope this helps. So here's the first one. Take it seriously. This is an incredible country. We actually get to choose who governs us for the next 4 years. We live in a democracy. 72%, very few people know this, 72% of people on the planet now live under authoritarian rule. I think it's 5.8 billion, something like that. So take it seriously. This is actually important. And if emotions are high and the stakes are high, it's because they are. And we get to choose our future, and that's really important. Number two, please understand that you're going to be disappointed either way, regardless of the results, right? In one version, in one scenario, your candidate will lose and you'll be disappointed. In the second scenario, he or she will win and will inevitably underdeliver, inevitably disappoint in one way or another. It's just politics. That's what it is. Three, be passionate about America. This is an incredible country. I'm an immigrant. I'm a grateful immigrant. And I think the system, the setup, the freedom that we enjoy here, it's worth fighting for. At its best, America is flourishing when the government knows its place. There's a very valuable place for government, but it's very, very limited. And basically, to the maximum extent, stays out of the lives of Americans so that Americans can build their lives, build their businesses, build their careers, take care of their children, serve other people, etc. So I think that is really important. That's an incredibly valuable American trait. is that government has a very limited plays a very limited role in the lives of its citizens. Number four, share your thoughts freely. We live in a free speech country. It's a privilege, it's actually a responsibility. So please do that as much as possible. But also hold your opinions lightly. And that's the tension that is sort of delicate, right? I want to give you an example from the Bible. It's interesting to think of the Bible and the drama around Jesus from the political perspective, because primarily the tensions that led to the crucifixion of Jesus were political tensions. He was crucified primarily because he was destabilizing the political status quo, and people got nervous, people in power, and they crucified him. Now, ironically, in the Sermon on the Mount, famously, he says in Matthew 5:9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." And if you think about it, at the time, there were these five different views of how to keep the peace. The first one was the Romans. They brought economic stability. They, of course, brought it through conquest and the force of arms and violence, but they built roads. They created an ecosystem. No one would attack you if you're a Roman province, etc., etc., etc. So they had their own view of stability, of peace, and what the benefits are for the people of Judea. Now, the locals had very different opinions about it. That none of them liked the Romans and the occupation, but they had their own internal versions of what it means to be a peacemaker. So they had the Sadducees; these were the elite, the aristocracy. Their view of keeping the peace was, hey, let's work with the Romans, let's collaborate, and then we can still take care of our people, right? The second group was the Pharisees. Their way was righteousness, right? Let's teach everybody how to obey the Bible and everything will be okay. God's going to take care of us. Then there was a third group. They were called the Zealots. These are the guys that really believed in violence and military force. And the fourth ones were the Essenes. The Essenes wanted to get away from all of it. They didn't want to get engaged with politics at all. And they just wanted to be separate in a desert somewhere, and they built their communities there. Now, if you think about it, all of these views were legitimate in their own way. All of those ways of thinking actually could have brought an outcome that made sense for people. And also at the same time, all of them disappoint. All of them. Judea was ultimately actually destroyed because the Zealots got their way, and there was a big military revolt, and the Romans crushed it, destroyed the temple, enslaved a bunch of people, killed over 1 million people, etc. So it was disastrous. And the reason I tell you this as an illustration is because if we translate that into today's world, all of the groups of people that are sort of fighting with words and actions, even sometimes, over the future of America, we all have our way to make peace. And our way makes sense to us. But other people's way also makes sense to them. Now, it doesn't mean that all opinions are equal. Some opinions are terrible. I have opinions about other people's opinions that I think are terrible opinions. So I'm not saying that they're equivalent. But what I'm saying is that we need to hold our opinions lightly. This is the fifth idea on how to survive election week and stay sane. Treat others with respect, curiosity, and love. This is the way of Jesus. If everybody would do it, politics would be actually a better thing. If you respect others, you will listen to them and they will speak to you. If you're curious, you might learn from them and they might learn from you. Even if you disagree, you're still commanded by Jesus to love your enemies, even your enemies. We are such limited beings. We might not be equally right about everything, obviously, but all of us are limited. I'll give you an example from my life. I campaigned very heavily for Boris Yeltsin. In my mind, I was risking my career, and actually maybe more than my career in doing so, because I wanted him to usher in an era of freedom, of democracy, and I did not want the communists to come back and usher in an era of tyranny. Well, guess what? A few years later, Boris Yeltsin handpicked as his successor a guy named Vladimir Putin. And he ushered in an era of authoritarian rule and everything reversed, right? Who knew? I didn't know. No one knew. And the good news here in America is that America is still an amazing country. It's still a free country. Whoever we vote into office collectively, it is our collective choice, our collective voice. And we can fire him or her from office in 4 years if they don't do a good job. And also, the good news is that ultimately, Jesus is King of all kings. I hope this helps. Have a great election week. Find peace, find love, find respect. Be grateful to live in a country where we can actually choose our rulers. Thank you for listening.